Please like, subscribe, and be sure to click that bell button for regular and exciting indie film content and your chance to be the first to engage with the Liftoff Global Network of Film Festivals as we embark on launching the careers of the filmmakers of tomorrow.
So Naomi, we are unable to screen your film as it goes muted. So are you happy for us to interview you in this form instead?
Sure.
Thank you. Great. So tell us a little bit more about Trespass Indwelling. How was this story born?
Well, I wrote this story a couple years back. It was a pretty interesting time in my life. I had like an injury that put me out of work for quite some time. So I had a lot of time with myself to kind of just sit there and think. And I really got to this point where like, wow, like I need to do something because I'm very creative. I do art, I do music, I do writing, and trying to figure out where I fit in that path, because choosing one thing was always hard for me to do. Like, should I go to school for this? Should I go to school for that? But ultimately, I was like, I need something that involves everything that I do. And filming was what came to mind. I'm like, honestly, you can include artwork in the film, you can make music, you can, write it. And so I'm like, all right, so I need to do something big. And I need to go all the way and see how far I can push it. And this is how I started writing, and I got into this story of something that I feel a lot of people can relate to, especially nowadays, feeling really isolated. Funny thing that COVID kind of started a little bit right after I finished filming this. A lot of people can be on their own, they can stuck with their thoughts, and sometimes we're the ones that can make ourselves think that everything around us is against us. So when it comes down to Trespass Indwelling, Celine, the main character, is about a young girl in her early 20s who goes through a really traumatic breakup, and she just feels really lost. And through feeling lost, she writes in her journal, and she starts to put out all her thoughts, and she just happens to be in this really beautiful landscape, but it's on haunted grounds. So she almost awakens this energy that was first initially inside of her, and now it has manifested in physical form. So throughout that journey, in the movie you'll be able to see, she starts to question everything that's positive or negative, or if her best friend is really being genuine. And throughout that, you'll get to see that in the film.
Perfect. I've got a few notes on the casting, because the chemistry between the two actors is really, well, I thought it was really well done. So one of my questions was, how did you find your actresses? And secondly, what was the rehearsal period like before you started shooting?
So me being relatively new into filming, I really wanted to make sure that my actors and actresses were at least going to be very committed. So up here in Massachusetts, from where I'm from, UMass Theater is not too far from me, the UMass College. So I went to a few plays, and I started to watch some of the actors and got information like, ooh, I like her. Ooh, I like him. And they work well together on stage, and ended up reaching out and doing kind of hey, let's meet at Starbucks, and I have this great idea and I think you'd be great for it. And a lot of them were really into the idea. And funny story, towards the end, the main character Celine and the boyfriend were actually a couple in real life. And when I didn't even realize, because until after the fact, I'm like, oh, well, that just kind of works out in a way.
And that's why the chemistry was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting, since it's kind of like a negative relationship in the film, which they had to kind of work around. But I think because of that, it kind of flew really naturally. Yeah.
And obviously, if this was your first, well, this is your first film that you did, looking at the process that you had with the actors, casting them from a theatre, then did you do much rehearsal, or was it more straight into filming?
Yeah, actually. After I got the interviews with them and they accepted, which everyone was compensated for, I arranged some rehearsals. There was like a public library where you can have like, you can rent out a big conference room
Nice.
where we had lights and cameras and we kind of had them sitting together. A lot of them didn't necessarily work together until that very first day, especially Emily, the best friend character. So we did rehearsals there. We ran through some lines. I actually also drew out the storyboard for the film, so everyone got to see like, oh, okay, so it's in this perspective, or I'm in this kind of scenery.
Nice.
And then a few other times we did go outside and get to practice some of the scenes outside, which I was very lucky that every single shoot we had really nice weather, which is hard to plan, a year in advance. But seems like every weekend that we filmed, we got very lucky on good weather.
So how long did it take you to shoot the film from start to finish?
I would say it took an entire summer, only because I wanted to have a really beautiful kind of intro. I really wanted to have like a nice aerial shot. So I was like, okay, I need to get a drone.
Yeah.
Because if I want to get some nice cinematic shots, I need to have some good gear. So I invested in a drone, and actually my very good friend Bill helped me a lot with getting some locations out. I flew out to Auburn, California, just to get the really beautiful intro with the lake and the trees and a few other shots. And with Bill, up here in the Berkshires in Bernardston, Mass, is where we shot The Hill. So I was like, all right, well, these kind of trees and those kind of trees kind of work together. So it's like, movie magic. So it kind of worked out really well. So a lot of the shots there, so that took time, just traveling to Cali, coming back, sites, like getting locations, and even in the restaurant shot was Mama Rico's Italian restaurant out here. We had to get like permission from really great local businesses to film inside the restaurant. But all in all, a lot of traveling back and forth. But I would say it took about a whole summer from like June until like almost end of September.
Wow. Well, it paid off. It definitely paid off. In the future, I'm not sure. Well, maybe depending on which aim you want to go down. But having that much time on a shoot is quite rare, especially for a short film. Sometimes it's like 2 days, 3 days, and it's done. But then if you're quite a small team, doing it your way will definitely make sure that you capture every shot and every image and idea that you had that you wanted to try. So I think you've done it the correct way. Well, it sounds like you have. Talking about locations, that was one of my questions, because obviously you are shooting in a restaurant and you also have another location. How did you come across these locations? And you kind of touched upon getting permission. Did you have to get any permits, or was it just permission based that you had to go through in order to shoot in those locations?
So it was a little tricky because there was one scene where there was like a somewhat fight between the two main characters, Celine and Derek. So when we came down to trying to get like an outdoor shot, we did have to reach out and then have like a brief description of what our expectations were. And because of that nature, they were charging. I think it was the Quabbin Reservoir. They're kind of strict about it. So they're like, okay, we'll do it, but you have to pay us like, it was like $250 an hour just to shoot. And I'm like, oh my God, like if we're just trying to get a couple shots, that's it's gonna add up, especially if majority of my shooting is outdoors. So I was like, okay. But with my friend Bill, he is very connected with the community. He actually lives in Bernardston, Mass, and he's like, oh yeah, actually there's this place right down the block for me, and I know a lot of the locals, and as long as I tell them what we're doing, we'll be okay. So I was like, that works for me, because that hill was very beautiful, and I can totally use that spot. for the restaurant. That's also one of Bill's friends. So he helped a lot getting us to those certain locations. And the family from Mama Rico's are very nice people. So they were very happy to help out.
Amazing. It's all about learning who's in your circle and what you can location-wise use, props use, costumes in order to get a film off the ground. So very lucky to have Bill as part of the project. I guess then I just wanted to touch upon the final couple of things was the special effects that you used within the film, and then go back to your creativity and wanting to be a filmmaker, and if there was any projects that inspired you to take on this industry. So let's start with the special effects. We can't obviously show it, but tell me a little bit more about how that came around.
So I was very fortunate to get to work with Ron and Dwayne. They're very talented. Ron is a cinematographer and the editor. Originally back in the day, we did like music videos together, or there was like a Bluetooth speaker commercial that we worked together. And I was like, when I was writing this, I was like, I really need to work with somebody who's legit and who's really going to commit and who has quality skill.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Ron, of course. So when I reached out to Ron, we met up and it's like, hey, I've been really wanting to work on, creating a film. Have you thought about doing that? And he was like, oh, yeah, that sounds awesome. And I actually have this friend Dwayne, who's really talented in music and acting as well. So Dwayne was our sound engineer, which we ended up collaborating together on the music, sound effects, and everything else too. But without those two guys, like the quality of all of us three together, like the Three Musketeers, like we really made the whole thing come together.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And then I guess my final question is, was there a particular film or what is your favorite film that inspired you to pursue this industry?
So I have a combination of favorites. My favorite kind of spooky movies are like The Conjuring, Annabelle, those kind of films.
Yeah.
I think are really cool. And I kind of grew up in a haunted house as a kid, so I already have that like connection where it's like, oh, I can tell that's fake. Oh, ooh, that's believable. So it's like just having that kind of experience growing up and being able to possibly put it in a story and put it on film. So that really inspired me, like just seeing how those films came together. Even Quentin Tarantino, he's one of my all-time favorites as well.
we could have a whole debate on Quentin Tarantino and his films.
Gosh,
but
yeah. So moving forward, I do plan on starting a graphic novel because my next project will be very, very big. It will probably require a bigger budget, but at least if I can get it on paper, dry it out, it could be a manifestation for the future, for sure.
A graphic novel is a really great way to get your story on paper, just as you said, because then it also turns into your storyboard. It's laid out like a storyboard. It visually, when you're looking at different investors to get people on board, they can instantly see what you're trying to do. So I always champion when people say graphic novels, that they're going to look at doing that. There was a film that screened in Cannes this year called Falcon Lake, and it's by a filmmaker called Charlotte Le Bon, and that was an adaptation from a graphic novel.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely check it out if it comes to America. I'm not sure if it's there yet, but Falcon Lake is a really, really fun film. Has a little spooky element to it as well.
Nice.
But actually, we didn't find out what Eric and Kevin's favourite films are, and we didn't find out what Mo's is either. So if you could pick one film, Naomi, what would you say is your favourite film of all time?
Oh, that's tough. Of all time, I don't really have one. I just know I'm really into the spooky genre.
That's a good
if
answer.
I had to pick one, I guess I would have to say The Conjuring.
The Conjuring. Okay, cool. Who wants to go first, Eric or Kevin?
I'll go. Mine's a weird one. I don't really know. I like Hooked by Steven Spielberg.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great one. Soundtrack is just amazing. It's just something about not giving up on childhood. I don't know. Something about that song just kind of so that one.
Nice. Kevin?
I think if I had to pick Rumblefish by Coppola, it's just like kind of it's mostly black and white, kind of like a really creative way, kind of like dark and weird, and then like pops of color come in at the end, and Tom Waits is in it, and I really like his acting, so it's really fun.
Nice. Fab. And Mo?
Oh, if I had to pick one, Casablanca.
Casablanca, a classic. Nice. Thank you. And then on that note, Eric, Kevin, Mo, do you have any questions for Naomi before we wrap up today's stream?
Sure. Can you watch horror movies alone?
Absolutely, even before bed. I don't get scared very easily.
So what would you say is just the scariest film you've ever seen then?
Scariest film? I guess I would have to go back to like The Conjuring, because I feel like whoever wrote that film or whoever watches that film can either relate to growing up in a haunted house or just know what's really spooky. So I'm hoping that I can, down the road, be part of that same industry.
Amazing. You should become a member of Shudder if you're not already.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Do you know what Shudder is? It's just the horror VOD platform.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And a film recommendation, if you haven't seen it, is The Descent. The Descent. It's not that scary, it's just jump scares, if you like that. It's really good at that. Cool. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much. And I'm really sorry that we had some technical issues and that the stream didn't go 100% to plan. And thank you to everyone who's watching. You guys have been great at keeping us on track with the sound as well. And thank you for supporting our filmmakers here today. Great. If you guys want to stay on the line, I'm just going to end the stream and then I can catch up with you. But thank you to everyone who joined us.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.